Hello SGD, Sacred Geometry Decoded. This will be part 2. Part 1, I'll put the playlist in the description. Also, other links will be in there. We've been looking at the Longfoot, and so the Folkestone drums recently published that do they encode the Longfoot in are these ancient tools? The geometry in them is interesting. I'd love to get some more info regarding to the weight between them as well, but this is a measure system, and the Longfoot are these like a tape measure in that you would wrap a cord around them to get ancient measure. For instance, so a Longfoot 1.056 feet would wrap 10 times around the small one, 8 times around that one, and 7 times around that one, 1.056 feet. The geometry, weights and measures, Fauchet, Hermes, Noir, and Fusee. Link to Dave Hanrahan, who sent me this recent article as well. And so are these tools for standard measure. Longfoot, or the Persian foot, goes back quite some time. It's a very interesting topic. Say in regard, so Stonehenge Phase 1, 270, 300, 330, or 360 long feet. And the prototype bar, so using something as this as a method of preserving weights and measures, or that to make any object, let's just say a sacred object, to have it at a sacred measurement. And this is not too much different from modern times with the meter prototype bar or the bronze yard bar, or for instance at Greenwich Observatory, and the Salamis stone, Doric, Ionic, allegedly modern English feet, being a harmony point at the Parthenon, as Mark Wilson Jones. If you look up Anne Balkans or J. Caprath, the Parthenon is there is not a right angle on the Parthenon. There is not a straight line, well, except for the drums of the Parthenon. No right angles. They're fitted together, individually fitted, watertight, just fantastic stuff. So again, if you ever hear that it's square blocks, right angle blocks, no, there's not a right angle. There's not a curve. There's not a straight line in this thing. The columns are curved. To create that curve, you would have to draw a circle 1 mile in diameter. The regular blocks are not regular. They're individually fitted. No right angles. Watertight, airtight, fantastic stuff. But when you measure it, should measure it from there when you're measuring a column, and that would make it 48 common or English feet, 45 Doric, or 50 Ionic. Now, that's a 16 to 15 ratio, Doric to Ionic, or a 24 to 25 ratio between the English and the Ionic foot, which is a. But anyway, Salamis stone, which also incorporates the samian foot, if you look at the perimeter of the stone. And what happens is, if you think in fingers, it's a perfect harmony point between the common, the Doric, the Ionic, and the samian scale. And keep in mind fingers. It's also square root of 5 Egyptian raw cubits in width within 1/3 of a millimeter. This was all in part 1, so I'll just skip through this. It's all time, measurement, beautiful geometry, proportions, and it's really stretching it to dismiss this as a coincidence on its own, given the nature of if it was random, it's surely the most random perfection symphony of random coincidence ever. But now back to the Folkestone drums and the importance of the Longfoot or the Persian foot, 1.056 feet, and these ancient units of measure are actually intricately, beautifully connected. And so again, all these links in the description. Now, Stonehenge Phase 1, which has the 12 to 5, as in a 5, 12, 13 triangle, second of the Pythagorean triplets. When you're measuring earthworks, so this is always going to be a question. When you're measuring earthworks over time, it's not like a nice clean line where you can measure exactly where it finishes and exactly where it starts. It erodes over time, so this is always going to be questioned. Unfortunately, that's just the nature of earthworks. Now, The same thing applies to Stonehenge. So the question is, how big is Stonehenge? What's the diameter? What's the circumference? Well, this will be linked in the description. There is no definitive data set for Stonehenge measurements. There never can be. Various surveyors at different times, the condition of Stonehenge varied. You just won't get an accurate measure of Stonehenge. And for instance, when Matthew Flinders Petrie did a geometric survey of Stonehenge and took one of a measurement, well, this was the conditions of the stone. So if the stones are tilting outways, they're going to change the circumference. If it's tilting inways, you're going to lose it. Now it's built on earth, soil. It's not on a stone foundation. So if over thousands of years, the earth is going to shift. Maybe it might contract, maybe it might expand, but it's over time, solid, such as soil, is actually liquid over time. Even if it moves 0.5 millimeter per year, or even 1/10 of a millimeter per year over 4,000 years, you can never really be sure, and that's always going to be a problem. And on top of that, there's been restorations at Stonehenge. That's the exact measures we're never really going to know. You can sort of build a bit of a case. Now, for instance, the restoration at Stonehenge, well known, it's not no secret. So how big is Stonehenge? Diameters range from 32 meters, give or take a fraction, which is 105 feet, up to 33 meters or 108 feet. Then the question is, well, how do you measure it? Do you measure it from the base, or do you measure it from the top, halfway up? Well, the stones themselves are not perfectly shaped. Now, if I was to do the circumference or the diameter at the top, it's going to be a big difference between the bottom there. So that's another issue with measuring in monument as an entirety. So many issues, so we're always going to have a problem there. However, if we look at places like grey weathers and bring up, okay, we also have the Gudava stone circle as well, which is around about 132.3 meters, 106 feet. So around there, but grey weathers 33 meters by 32 meters, which is 108 and 105 feet. The ratio 33 to 32 is interesting. But if only a couple of inches out on either side, this has a dramatic impact, and so you can't, with any sort of certainty, say this is exactly the measurement. That's just the nature of earthworks and stone circles. However, in places such as the Kingsmen and the hurler stones and others, we see 108 feet. But we also, as in Gudava and grey weathers, or in the standing stones of Steness, we see 105 feet. And so as looking at them across the UK, we start to get an idea that there are standardized measures in there and pointing towards not just 108 modern English feet, but also 105, because 105 feet or 105.6 of a foot, that's 3 inches and a bit on either side. But what we do have is that the individual pieces, such as the lintel stones, are 10 long feet, or very close to it, in that they're 10.5 feet wide, which would make that, so again, 105.6 feet, 105 here at grey weathers, and which has a 33 to 32 ratio happening, which brings us back to 32-33 series. And that's an interesting connection to the Longfoot, because 33 times 32 is 1056, same set of numbers. The allegedly modern feet and miles connection, so 1056 by 2 is 528, 5,280 feet per mile. 32 rods, 528 feet. 1 rod is 16.5 feet, or 33 over 2. 32nd triangular number, 528, 33 pounds, 528 ounces, 32, 33, 528. Times by 2, 1056. But what I mean by that is, so the lintels, they have not shifted in any, so there is a good evidence of the Longfoot in the lintels, because they're 10.5 feet. 10.56 could be, again, 0.06 of a foot. It's going to be an issue. However, if we keep going, so let's assume that 10 lintels of 10.56 feet times 10 will give us a diameter of Stonehenge and the long foot. Now we need to consider the Salamis stone, which was in part 1. They have a doric, ionic and common foot, but also the perimeter of a Salamis stone incorporates the samian or foot of Samos, Pythagoras of Samos, and in fingers harmonizes wonderfully. Very beautiful stuff going on there. And, well, keep in mind fingers, because here we have Doric, Ionic, Samian, long feet, Indus or Mohenjo-Daro feet, Babylonian royal, or the Saxon foot. So 105.6 feet or 100 long feet is 1,584 Doric fingers, 1,760 Ionic fingers, 1,485 Samian, 1,600 fingers on the long scale. Now I must say, the long foot, we don't know what the subdivisions are. Did they divide by 10? Did they divide by 12? Did they divide by 91? We don't know. However, on this inches, feet scale, well, in fingers, it's a conversion point. Happens to be 144 as well. However, the Royal Babylonian, we do know what their divisions were, and so it's 1,920 Royal Babylonian fingers, and the Saxon foot is 1,536 fingers. The Saxon foot, North European or Drusian foot, we do know the subdivisions there, and you'll notice that the Indus, Royal Babylonian and Saxon foot are all equal, 1.1 or 13.2 inches. Now, if the long scale was divided in this sort of common way of doing it with 3, 4 and 12s, for instance, it's 2 over 3 essentially, 3 over 4, but we do have these connections, and with these units, Doric, Ionic, Samian, as in the Salamis stone, as in the fingers being the common point on the Parthenon, fingers being this unity point on Stonehenge. If it was 105.6, but consider the other stone circles are at between 105 and 106 feet. The lintels connect to that as well. So what we have is now 3, 4, 5, 6, 1152, 384. So 384 times 2 is 768, 288, all the harmonic, it's all there. Now 100 long feet is also equal to 330 Ionic hands or 33 Doric yards. I could go through, in previous videos, I just go through the importance of these numbers, how they apply to geometry, arithmetic, astronomy and music. It's all there. It is, and is it a coincidence? Or how do you, well, it's fair. Chicken or the egg, which one come first? However, given that the important geometry such as Pythagorean theorem, squaring the circle, which connects to especially astronomical proportions, that the archaeoastronomy of these sites, the alignments, everything that's going on, it is a storm, a perfect storm of beautiful coincidence connected to the Quadrivium, to the older schools, Pythagorean schools, Pythagoreans, Greeks, where did they learn from? From the Babylonians and the Egyptians. This has been impossible to prove, really, without a time machine, but the burden of evidence I would say would be on the skeptics, because you would have to now establish how these different, separate, apparently unconnected cultures fall into place in such a wonderful, beautiful way that corresponds to modern architecture, and harmony points and the pi and phi geometry. It's really, I've catalogued so many ancient sites, modern sites, Renaissance. It's continued through. To dismiss it as coincidence is no, you can't do it. If it is, that's a pathology of yours. It's denialism. Now, to say it's proven, that's a big call, but to just dismiss it as coincidence, no, that can't be done in any reasonable, logical way. This is measurable, testable, unlike the stone circles, other places can be measured with superb accuracy, and they all say the same thing. Have a good